Hey, everybody. Welcome. I'm really excited to be here. My name is David Potes, and I work for Amazon Web Services. So obviously, we're really into data lakes here and broadcasting from Santa Cruz in this virtual world. And really here to start to talk about some of the big trends that we're seeing in the field. I'm going to steal my own thunder and tell you what I'm going to tell you at the end, that the data lake is not really the end state of what you're trying to do. I think of it as a foundation that really lets you do all kinds of things that the markets are demanding that your company do to keep up. And I'm not really an agenda guy, so I'm not going to bore you with an agenda. Just going to dive right in and illustrate what we are seeing in the market. So the data lake itself, I've been in analytics for quite some time, and I've kind of seen this pattern, or the meta pattern, over and over, where something comes in and it feels very exotic at first, and then it rapidly becomes the standard pattern. And we've definitely seen that evolution with the data lake. It's moved from an innovation and kind of something for edge cases in the very largest companies to really a trusted solution that's the foundation of many modern analytic structures. And we have tens of thousands of data lakes on AWS right now, and probably more. The statistic is about a year old, but we see people pretty much in either in it already or in some stage of adoption. And to really understand why this is so compelling, I'm going to bore you with a little bit of a history lesson. But when storage was limited and expensive, we had to do a lot of work to avoid storing too much data, and it made a lot of sense to carefully transform, edit, and curate data before sending it to those expensive data warehousing systems of the time. And really, with Amazon S3, and we've seen it continually get cheaper over time, it starts to drive the cost of the next marginal piece of data towards zero. And with exabyte scale, there's really no limit, or virtually no limit. I mean, there's theoretical physical limits on how much data you can store. And what we see with the most innovative companies, they're really upending this paradigm that you can just store everything, right? Which makes things very interesting because it puts curation in the hands of the data consumer, i.e. your analysts and your business users, rather than asking data engineers to predict which data is important. And you may not know for years what is really critical. And having this data lake really future-proofs you, because it allows customers to extend or evolve their data warehouse architecture. They can store data in any format, including formats that have yet to be invented. It keeps happening. And it's secure, compliant, and auditable by design. What that means is that it's built into the foundation. Anytime you see security as a sort of bolt-on, you can expect challenges ahead. But if you build it into the design, then you can focus on iterating and getting better. And what's cool is customers can run any kind of analytics on top of the data lake, whether you want to run long historical data captures, whether you want to know what's happening in real time so you can make decisions right now, or if you want to make future predictions. And by decoupling storage and compute, these customers can cost effectively scale both of these elements independently. So you don't have to necessarily add more servers if you have more data. And if you don't have a data lake yet, no problem. AWS Lake Formation makes it really easy to get started and set up a data lake. But don't ask me, ask Amazon.com. Our sister company that is well known for gathering a lot of data and needing to analyze it. They built a data lake architecture and and the team was able to double the amount of data analyzed, which doesn't sound too impressive until you understand that the doubling was from 50 to 100 petabytes, and this system supports over 600,000 analytics jobs a day. So if you can do it, or if we can do it, you can do it. And what's cool is that Kubel takes advantage of a lot of this stuff. Really, the architecture gives you access to some of the most innovative services and features of the AWS cloud. And like many modern cloud products, Kubel's designed with a control plane architecture. This is what we call it. And really, just like how we want to decouple storage and compute, we want to separate the control functions from the processing functions. In modern architecture, this often means running this control plane in the provider's account, i.e. Kubel in this case, and then running the processing apparatus in the customer account. And this has a couple of benefits. One, freedom from maintenance, right? You get freedom from maintaining the administration platform itself. And this is what we call undifferentiated heavy lifting, right? Let somebody else obsess over maintaining your infrastructure and free your company from many of the efforts associated with that highly available platform. You want people that are waking up every morning caring about this piece of software, and you really get that when you use a provider like Kubel. Two, with the infrastructure actually running in your account, not only can you take advantage of various processing engines like Spark or Presto or Hive or Hadoop, but you can mix and match and really kind of change your approach in the future. And what I find from talking to both consumers and curators of data, they really like that flexibility because it's key to have the best tool for the job if you want to realize insights at the best cost and the best speed at the same time. And with Kubel, you get to unlock a lot of the cost savings because they have a really elegant use of Spot and on-demand instances. And if you don't know about Spot, think of it as a resale market for unused instances. So maybe somebody has purchased too much capacity and they're trying to hand that off. And it works almost exactly like a financial market with a price. And typically that price 90% less than on-demand prices. But there's a bit of a catch here. I'm going to be completely honest with you. These instances can go away with very little notice if the spot price moves out of your spot or out of your price range. You basically set a limit. If it exceeds that, your instances go away. But it's possible and feasible to build a system to manage this with near zero risk. And I see customers do that. In kind of the old build versus buy. And I think one of the reasons I like talking about Kubel is you kind of get the best of both worlds with that, right? They have a lot of experience architecting around Spot. They were an early company to integrate really closely with it. And what that means is that you kind of are able to get the benefits without the risk. As a bonus, if your company has an enterprise commitment and or reserved instances, pretty easy to integrate these savings into the platform. And finally, and probably most importantly in my book, is that you can see from this architecture that Kubel integrates nicely with multiple AWS services, whether our storage services like S3, which I talked about earlier, or if you want to do further processing with tools like Redshift and SageMaker, or Amazon SageMaker, which we'll talk about later in this presentation. And personally, I love how Kubel really takes advantages of the various AWS services to improve your experience as a customer. There is a difference between platforms, and working with ISVs that are really built to take advantage of that is one of the key things that you want to do as a buyer and a consumer of these services. Be demanding, right? It's like it's important that these tools aren't just generic, right? Your cloud service provider, like AWS, is a strategic part of your stack. So don't miss out on that. So that's kind of piece number one, the foundation of the data lake. Now I'm going to shift gears just a little bit, talk about Hadoop on the cloud, and what we're seeing is an epic movement. This is kind of the last kind of huge migration from on-premises processing to the cloud, and one of the big drivers is that companies that chose to buy hardware 3 or 4 years ago, maybe they were uncertain at that time, 2017, 2016, they weren't ready to go to the cloud. But when I talk to customers today, they're seeing very few reasons to stay on premises, and they're seeing incredibly compelling reasons both to run away from the data center and run to the cloud to take advantage of some of these inherent capabilities of cloud computing that many of you are probably familiar with. And when you look at the cost differential today, the on-premises environment is really at a disadvantage. You have well-known challenges around coupling storage and compute, fixed capital costs to acquire hardware, but also there's the challenge of not being able to scale up and scale down in what I call a cost-avoidant way. In the cloud, customers like FINRA, the regulatory agency that monitors the markets for fraud, can process 135 billion events per day and trillions, that's trillions with a T, of records, and still save 60% on cost. There's this notion of ephemeral clusters that spin up to process and spin down when the job is done. And then you couple that with the effective use of spot instances, and you can really make a meaningful change to one's business. And the approach that Qubel takes is very similar to what I see people architecting in the field. The cool part is that they've got a lot of practice. So makes for a much better experience. And with kind of this approach of processing in the cloud, we see customers like Vanguard, the investment company, saving over $600K in just 5 months. And like most of our own analytics products, as well as partner products like Qubel, this integrates nicely with S3 and thus your data lake strategy. So kind of getting to the cloud to do the processing is really something that I see very few reasons for people to stay behind on premises today. And if you do feel you have reasons, I would analyze those very closely. As you start to dig into the details, you'll find things that seem like roadblocks are actually things that you can do better in the cloud, whether that's security, data governance, or protection. And that's a great segue. We've got some numbers here around some of the things that you can do with processing, and here's some great customer stories about customers that are actually really doing cool things, saving money, increasing performance. So FINRA, as I mentioned before, cool story here. They're doing a lot of different processing and really able to get those cost savings. So I promised you that you can do things better in the cloud. Here's a great example. Because we're architecting around data governance and protection, and we have a saying at AWS that security is job zero, and I do believe that security should be job zero at your company too. And people always kind of took that to heart, but it gets a lot more serious now that GDPR has come around, with potential fines based on revenue. GDPR completely changed the calculus of risk for organizations. especially as it pertains to the use and safeguarding of what we call PII, or personally identifiable, easy for me to say, personally identifiable information. I will say PII for the rest of this. And approaching governance requires asking a lot of hard questions. And I don't mean hard as in judgment. I mean hard as in difficult to answer. You can think of the types of questions as falling into roughly 3 buckets, right? What do I have? What can I do with it? And what am I actually doing with it right now? And it being kind of data in this sense. And the answers to these questions are going to be different based on your organization, the regulatory regimes that you have, the compliance that you have to do. Don't want to sound too weaselly, but your mileage may vary here. But what I can tell you is that there are very few companies that don't have to address this in a meaningful way, and I would be shocked if you were one of those. So you need to be able to answer these questions, and I want to dive in a little deeper on the first question, i.e., what do I have? And for many organizations starting their journey, this is a surprisingly hard question. Whether you're beginning, or if you've been in it for a while and you don't really have the right tooling and strategy. And if you've ever seen me speak at reInvent, including last year, you will know that I love talking about data catalogs. And having a robust data catalog is really a key part of your strategy here. You need a canonical source for metadata or data about data to have visibility into your assets, your data assets, and make no mistake, data is an or possibly the asset of your business. And we have a great cataloging tool called AWS Glue. It's a serverless tool, does data cataloging and crawling, or if you're looking at solutions like Elation or Calibra or Informatica. But really what this does is gives you visibility. Like, where is all my data? What do I have, right? And that gives you the ability to start to do things like de-identifying data by either masking or tokenizing it. Because remember, the easiest PII to protect is the stuff that's not there. And you can start to use master data management tools. So, if I'm in a customer record as both David and Dave, we want to join that record so that I am one person, right? Because I am. Another really interesting MDM play is a company called Tamer that's doing some really cool things with ML to drive this master data management. And then you can do cool things like have customers or have your users actually rate the data that they use, and you can bubble up the best data sets in search. If you're part of a large company, the number of data sets available is too many to actually try everyone. So one of my friends, colleagues, and neighbors liking that might be really interesting to me as a developer or an analyst. The other two questions, what can I do and what am I actually doing? And the delta between those two things really kind of leans into trend number 4. And I stole my own thunder by scrolling too quickly. But we are I love the notion of data being compared to oil. So what the Economist famously said 2 years ago that the value of the world's data exceeds the value of oil in the world. And that is only increasing because we are generating more data as opposed to that other stuff. What you can do and what you are doing with data can cut both ways. So exceeding the legal and policy restrictions can really be solved by a combination of people, process, and tools. So train your people both the technical and the business folks, on limitations and responsibilities of their data stewardship. Get the right tooling in place, like we've discussed previously in this talk. And then finally, it's really critical to build mechanisms. We talk a lot about mechanisms at Amazon, and these are really kind of self-reinforcing systems that help you solve a problem. In this case, you want to build a mechanism and really practical procedures to assess and mitigate the risks that you have, because ultimately it's a risk reduction exercise. You just have to repeat it forever. That's all. Just do it forever. And thinking of data as oil, I think this analogy really holds water, if you will, because data assets are often yet to be discovered, or if known, they still have to be extracted for monetization. And we see customers subscribing to data sets so that they can enrich and or augment the data that's already there. But what's really interesting is that if you get your data in proper shape, and I mean cataloged, secured, encrypted, de-identified, then your company actually has an opportunity to be a data provider. And this might be to what I call second parties, like a payroll provider or a business partner. And it could also extend to true third-party monetization of your data. And we have a product here. We often have a product here to help. In this case, it is AWS Data Exchange, and really designed to solve the challenges for both the subscriber and the data provider. For subscribers, it simplifies access and acquisition of data. So, I need something hard to find, hard to license. This product really solves that. And the other side of the equation for publishers, it really streamlines the process of both acquiring customers, because you're literally part of a marketplace, as well as the fulfillment piece. So you don't have to set up a purpose-built infrastructure to do that billing and fulfillment. For example, property insurers can subscribe to data to analyze historical weather patterns, to really kind of calibrate their insurance coverage requirements in different geographies. Restaurants can subscribe to population and location data, so if they want to identify the optimal placement for expansion. And we have more than 1,000 data products from over 80 data providers. So I encourage you to check it out today. Cool product, and super simple to use, and really, like that helps you get that flywheel of data moving. I'm fond of talking about flywheels because once you get them moving, the analogy holds true. They keep spinning, and the key here is more data, right? More data equals better decisions, and that is really the key and the value of running data lakes on AWS, and to move on, I want to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is machine learning. And if you catch me in person at some point, I can talk for hours for this stuff, but time is limited, so let's get moving. So when we think about machine learning, I think it's pretty clear that there's a sea change happening. And on the low end, it could be merely as revolutionary for competitive advantage as the SaaS delivery model when it came on the scene a decade or so ago, or it could be as consequential as the internet. And we'll kind of see that if machine learning disappears and becomes a part of everything, we know it's probably on the high end. Either way, huge opportunity. And the activity we see in the field really supports survey results that 9 of 10 companies are investing in ML and artificial intelligence, and jives exactly with what I'm seeing. I have yet to talk to a customer in the past 12 months that doesn't see challenges and opportunities in machine learning. And This is where use of the data lake approach really gives you an advantage, right? It allows you to make better, faster, and smarter decisions. Usually you have to pick 2 out of 3, but in this case, you get all 3. And ML is data hungry. The more data you have, the better training data that you can do, and the more accurate your decisions will be. And if you've been listening all along, you're already collecting this data in your data lake, right? And just like other types of analysis, I see machine learning engineers really need flexibility. And this is a fast-moving space. So forget about 2 years from now. 6 months from now, things will probably be different. And the data lake really supports that by defining the schema on read. ML needs scalability. It needs to scale storage and compute independently, whether that's a CPU or a GPU. And then ML requires running a broad set of processing and analytics without data movement, right? Analyze the data, don't copy it all over the place. Otherwise, your costs go up, your complexity goes up, and your challenges of governance and security go up. Finally, to be effective in machine learning, this is where your governance strategy comes into play. Things around networking, identity, and encryption. And we take kind of a multipolar approach to supporting customers with our AI and ML services. And there's lots of entry points to get started. But usually the way I outline things to customers is a layer cake approach. So our offerings essentially fall into 3 layers. So the bottom layer is our deep learning AMIs, and these are essentially pre-built images for experienced ML engineers to get started right away. If you just want an integrated system and want to get up and running and run your own tools, super easy to get started there. Very simple. And kind of in the middle layer, we have SageMaker, and this is really important. Don't think of SageMaker as a tool, but rather as a platform. And it includes everything from SageMaker Studio, which is an ML IDE or integrated development environment. Has tons of features like autopilot, which is our auto ML functionality, and SageMaker endpoint hosting. So build a model and turn it into an API, and a lot of other really useful features, whether you're a pro or just getting started. And then at the top layer, we have what we call our AI services. And these are really kind of purpose-built to do one thing and do it really well, that type of service. Like personalized, for example, designed to identify personalized search entries, or fraud detector that searches through millions or billions of entries to find anomalous behavior, or translate that does just like what it says, a smooth and easy translation engine. And they're cool because, they're kind of one box that does one thing. These AI services, not trying to do everything, trying to keep it very specific and get really, really good at that. And the way that we do that is, we give these hooks for developers so they can just use these services without having to reinvent the wheel. Unless, you really like inventing wheels, then go for it. And we see lots of customers using these services to make better decisions faster. Like ADP, they're using machine learning to predict workforce turnover, or Thomson Reuters providing natural language Q&A. And my tip from the field, I've seen 2 big reasons why customers struggle with machine learning projects. And one, pretty straightforward. It's super important to get the business problem framed correctly on the front end, and have a clear picture of what you're trying to solve and why machine learning enhances this effort. You may find that many of these problems are solved by analytics rather than prediction. And I promised you a grand unified theory earlier in this talk, and this is the way that I really see it, is that there's a temporal component to analytics. So you basically have three types of analytics questions. What happened, what is happening, and what can we predict? And you know, the being able to do all of these things well is hard, but the data lake will support you on that. And you know, this is what I see, you know, kind of people framing the problems. The second area is that, okay, you've got a good idea, you've got a salient model, and you need to get this to production. And you know, I do see with companies gaps between you know, the folks that are building these models in R&D and kind of more traditional DevOps teams or system engineers that need to deploy these to production. So train your DevOps and system engineers. We do see what we call an ML ops practice emerging, and we have a couple of blog posts out to talk about that. Lots of tooling coming online, but definitely, you know, kind of see a challenge. And one of the bigger challenges for DevOps folks is that the data is an inherent part of the model, and that underlying data can change. So you need new tooling and to be able to monitor things properly. It's right now it's just a question of training and upskilling your teams. And Swami, our VP of Machine Learning Services, super sharp guy. You know, he tells us that machine learning is something that's not easy to master because the algorithms are not easy to build. You need specialized compute resources to get the best result and large swaths of data. And really our goal as the machine learning team at AWS is to make ML so easy that you can invest in not just data scientists. I know many data scientists, and I find that they're often brilliant and funny, but all too rare in the talent marketplace. And really our services and tools associated with the SageMaker suite and the partners we work really closely with are really designed to extend the capability of your data scientists and make them more efficient. And we work closely with the platform providers, the DSML platform providers, i.e. data science and machine learning, to make sure they're all tightly integrated with the AWS platform. And you know, we see a lot of outstanding customer experiences out there, and all of this is to make sure that you know, you can make machine learning on AWS easy, fun, and useful. That's our prime directive, and that's what we're trying to do. Now, I want to thank everybody for joining me today for this discussion. I hope you're as excited about the power of the data lake as I am, and I hope you're looking for more learnings here throughout this conference. There's some great sessions. If you like this session, I have a hashtag here. Please feel free to use it. There's a Slack channel if you want to talk to other folks that are into this stuff. And I want to thank Qubel for giving me the opportunity to talk today. And I want to thank all of you for listening. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and keep storing that data. Thank you.